May 12, 2002, A1 Ring, Austria. Rubens Barrichello was leading the Austrian Grand Prix with just meters remaining. He had driven the perfect race, controlled the pace, and deserved victory more than anything in his career. Behind him, Michael Schumacher sat in second position, already dominating the 2002 championship with 5 wins from 5 races. Then, on the final corner of the final lap, Barrichello received the radio call that would trigger the biggest scandal in modern Formula One. Let Michael through. What happened next would shock the world, enrage the fans, and force the FIA to change the rules forever. The 2002 season had been total Ferrari domination from the very first race. Schumacher won Australia, then Malaysia, then Brazil, then San Marino, then Spain. 5 races, 5 victories. The championship wasn't a competition anymore, it was a procession. Ferrari's F2002 car was so superior that races were essentially over after qualifying. Schumacher led the championship by massive margins. Nobody could touch him. Nobody could even get close. But this dominance created a problem within Ferrari. Rubens Barrichello, Schumacher's teammate since 2000, was the perfect number 2 driver. Fast enough to score points and wins for the team, loyal enough never to challenge Schumacher for the championship. The Brazilian had accepted his role gracefully, supporting Schumacher's title campaigns without complaint. But every racing driver dreams of winning, and Austria 2002 offered Barrichello that rare opportunity. The A1 ring circuit suited the Ferrari perfectly. The fast, flowing corners played to the car's aerodynamic strengths. Both Ferraris dominated practice from the beginning. Schumacher took pole position on Saturday with a brilliant lap. Barrichello qualified second, just 0.2 behind. The grid was set for another Ferrari 1-2 procession. But this time, something would be different. Race morning brought beautiful Austrian weather. Clear blue skies, warm temperatures, perfect racing conditions. The grandstands filled with fans, many waving Ferrari flags, expecting another Schumacher masterclass. The team garage buzzed with confidence. Jean Todt reviewed strategy with Ross Brawn. Everything was planned meticulously. Both Ferraris would finish 1-2. Schumacher would extend his championship lead. Perfect execution. The start brought unexpected drama. As the lights went out, Schumacher's launch was poor. The Ferrari bogged down slightly, wheels spinning. Barrichello got a brilliant start beside him, shooting ahead cleanly into the first corner. The Brazilian took the lead. Behind them, the Williams and McLarens battled for third position, but they were seconds slower per lap. This race would be decided between the 2 red cars at the front. The opening laps were fascinating. Barrichello controlled the pace beautifully, hitting his marks perfectly, managing his tires intelligently. Schumacher sat behind, close but not attacking. The gap remained stable around 1 second. Lap after lap, the same positions. Barrichello, Schumacher, then a massive gap to third place. The Brazilian was driving the race of his life. By lap 20, Barrichello had extended the gap slightly to 1.5 seconds. He was genuinely faster today. The confidence flowed through him. This could be his day. His first victory since joining Ferrari, a home win in front of Austrian fans who loved the team. Everything felt right. The car was perfect, the pace was strong, victory was within reach. In the Ferrari pit wall, discussions were happening that Barrichello couldn't hear. Jean Todt spoke quietly with Ross Brawn. The team had a policy, unwritten but understood. When the championship is close, Barrichello supports Schumacher. But the championship wasn't close. Schumacher led by 34 points already. He had won every single race. 1 win for Barrichello wouldn't change anything mathematically, but Ferrari's culture was clear. Schumacher was number 1, always. The first pit stops came on lap 25. Barrichello pitted first, a perfect stop, 7.1 seconds. He rejoined, still ahead. Schumacher pitted 1 lap later, another perfect stop, 6.9 seconds. He rejoined, still in second position. The order remained unchanged. Barrichello continued to lead comfortably. The gap was stable. The Brazilian was managing everything perfectly. Lap 40 brought the second round of pit stops. Again, Barrichello stopped first. Another flawless execution, 7.3 seconds. Schumacher pitted next lap, 7.2 seconds. Both drivers rejoined in the same positions. 21 laps remained. Barrichello led by 1.2 seconds. Victory was so close he could taste it. But in the Ferrari garage, the decision had been made. Jean Todd's expression was grim. He knew what was coming. Ross Brawn looked uncomfortable. The team managers prepared the radio message. This was going to be controversial. They knew it, but team orders were legal in 2002. Ferrari paid both drivers. Ferrari called the strategy, and Ferrari wanted Schumacher to win. Lap 50. 21 laps remaining. Barrichello received the first hint over team radio. Rubens, maintain the gap, don't pull away. The message was subtle but clear. Don't make this difficult. The Brazilian felt his stomach tighten. He knew what this meant, but he kept pushing. Maybe they would let him have this one win. Maybe today would be different. Lap 60. 11 laps to go. Another message. Rubens, Michael is faster. Maintain position. The wording was more direct now. Barrichello's frustration grew. He was leading. He had earned this. Why couldn't they just let him win one race? His radio crackled, but he didn't respond. He just kept driving, kept leading, hoping they would change their minds. Lap 75. 6 laps remaining. The gap had grown to 2.1 seconds because Barrichello was still pushing hard. Another radio call, this time more urgent. Rubens, confirm you understood the message. The Brazilian's heart sank. They weren't going to let him win. After everything, after all his loyalty, after accepting his role for 2 years, they still wouldn't give him one victory? His voice came over the radio, quiet and defeated. Understood. The final laps were agony for everyone watching who understood what was happening. Barrichello slowed his pace slightly. The gap to Schumacher began closing. 2.1 seconds became 1.8, then 1.5, then 1.2. The Brazilian wasn't racing anymore. He was following orders. The dream was dying with every meter. Lap 70. The final lap began. Barrichello led by less than 1 second now. He could see Schumacher's red Ferrari in his mirrors constantly. They went through turn 1, still in formation. Through the fast, sweeping corners, Barrichello continued to slow incrementally. Through turn 8, he was barely racing anymore. Then came the moment that would define the entire race and create a scandal heard worldwide. Approaching the final corner before the finish line, Barrichello slowed dramatically. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't graceful. It was painfully, obviously, deliberately slow. Schumacher came alongside on the pit straight. The two Ferraris crossed the finish line side by side, with Schumacher barely ahead by meters. Michael Schumacher won the Austrian Grand Prix, but nobody was celebrating. The crowd's reaction was immediate and furious. Loud, sustained booing echoed around the circuit. Fans threw debris onto the track. The Austrian spectators were outraged. They had watched Barrichello dominate for 71 laps, only to be ordered to hand victory away on the final corner. It was unsporting, cynical, and completely unnecessary given Schumacher's massive championship lead. In the Ferrari garage, the celebration was muted and uncomfortable. The mechanics knew what had happened. Jean Todt looked grim. Ross Brawn avoided eye contact with anyone. Schumacher climbed from his car without the usual victory celebration. Even he looked uncomfortable with what had just occurred. Barrichello parked his Ferrari in second position and sat in the cockpit for long seconds, helmet still on, not wanting to face anyone. When he finally climbed out, his body language showed complete dejection. This should have been his day. Instead, it became his nightmare. The injustice was written across every movement. The podium ceremony became one of the most uncomfortable moments in Formula One history. As the top three drivers gathered, the booing intensified. The Austrian crowd's anger was deafening. When Schumacher was introduced as the winner, the boos grew even louder. He stood on the top step looking genuinely distressed. This wasn't how champions should win. Then Schumacher did something unexpected. He grabbed Barrichello and physically pushed him onto the top step of the podium, insisting the Brazilian take the winner's position. Barrichello initially refused, but Schumacher insisted. They awkwardly swapped positions, Schumacher taking second place, Barrichello standing uncomfortably on the top step. The crowd's booing continued regardless. The champagne spray was half-hearted and joyless. The Italian anthem played for Ferrari, but nobody sang. The trophy presentation was awkward, with Barrichello accepting the winner's trophy even though he had finished second. Schumacher looked miserable throughout. This was supposed to be his sixth consecutive victory. Instead, it became a public relations disaster. The press conference afterwards was brutally honest. Barrichello spoke first, his voice heavy with emotion and barely controlled anger. "I am very sad. This is not how I wanted to finish. I had the pace to win today. I deserved this victory, but the team decided differently." The room fell silent. Drivers rarely criticized their teams so openly. Schumacher tried to defend the decision, but struggled to find convincing words. "The team makes the strategy calls. I follow team orders. That's how Formula One works. But I understand Rubens' frustration. If I could give him this win, I would." His explanation rang hollow. He was already dominating the championship. One victory for Barrichello would have meant everything to the Brazilian and nothing to the championship.
The media reaction was savage and universal. British newspapers called it the day Ferrari killed Formula One. Italian press questioned whether this victory damaged Ferrari's reputation more than it helped the championship. German media suggested Schumacher should have refused the team order. The controversy dominated sports news globally. The FIA response was swift and decisive. Max Mosley, FIA president, called the incident bad for the sport and promised rule changes. The governing body fined Ferrari $1 million for bringing the sport into disrepute, even though team orders were technically legal at the time. The fine was largely symbolic, but sent a clear message. More significantly, the FIA announced that starting in 2003, team orders that affected race results would be banned completely. Article 39.1 was added to the sporting regulations. Team orders which interfere with a race result are prohibited. Austria 2002 had directly caused a rule change that would last for years. The long-term consequences for the people involved were significant and lasting. Barrichello's relationship with Ferrari was permanently damaged. He would continue as Schumacher's teammate through 2005, but the trust was broken. He never forgot Austria 2002. In interviews years later, he still spoke about it with visible pain and anger. Schumacher went on to win the 2002 championship by a record margin, finishing with 144 points to Barrichello's 77. He won 11 races that season, but Austria 2002 remained a stain on that dominance. Critics pointed to it as evidence of Schumacher's win-at-all-costs mentality, his willingness to accept victories he hadn't truly earned on track. Ferrari's image suffered significantly. The team that prided itself on passion and racing spirit had shown cold corporate calculation. The tifosi were divided. Some defended the team order as necessary for championship success. Others felt ashamed that Ferrari had robbed their own driver of a deserved victory. Jean Todt later admitted regret about the decision. "Looking back, we made a mistake. Michael already had a huge championship lead. We should have let Rubens win. It was the right thing to do, and we didn't do it." The admission came years too late to change anything. The 2003 season brought the new team orders ban, but teams quickly found ways around it. Save fuel or engine problems became code for let your teammate through. The rule was difficult to enforce and often ignored. But Austria 2002 had at least forced the FIA to acknowledge that blatant team orders damaged the sport's integrity. Austria 2002 remains one of the most controversial races in Formula One history. It encapsulated everything people loved and hated about Michael Schumacher and Ferrari. The ruthless pursuit of victory, the dominance that became boring, the team orders that made racing seem scripted rather than competitive, the winning that felt hollow because it wasn't truly earned. Austria 2002 taught that lesson the hard way. The final corner of that final lap lasted just 3 seconds. But those 3 seconds reverberated through Formula One for years, changing rules, damaging relationships, and proving that sometimes winning isn't everything. Sometimes how you win matters more than whether you win. Austria 2002 taught that lesson the hard way.